we're all aware that the pressure on the physical square footage of the book trade, if you like, is diminishing. Libraries are being closed down, bookshops are being closed down, and so I'm always interested in looking for ways to collaborate outside of the traditional book trade with artists and using technology to find ways to go where readers are. For me, collaborating is a sort of central part of my practice. To try something out that I then might, to test something, if you like, that I could then use in my more mainstream fiction work. It's interesting asking the question of why one collaborates as a writer. And actually, it's the idea that a writer is working in solitude, you know, in an ivory tower or in a garret or whatever, writing as a solitary pursuit, is kind of a myth, or it's not quite the whole story. Certainly, a lot of writing is sitting at your desk and just kind of crunching through, the writing process. And writing a novel can take a couple of years or longer. But getting from a manuscript to a published book is a collaborative process. And so actually, once you're published for the first time, once you go through that kind of workflow, as it's called, that takes you from a written manuscript to a published book, you realize that it's a collaborative process, that you're collaborating at every stage of the process with editors, with copy editors, with proofreaders, with designers, typesetters, with a sales team, with bookshops. You're collaborating all the time. So actually the idea of collaborating it's a kind of unspoken secret at the heart of publishing. Suddenly, when you're working with a musician or a visual artist, but if you're working with a musician, they see stories in a completely different way than writers do or than readers do, because they're looking at a story and listening to it, listening for the rhythm, looking for kind of themes that kind of run through the story. They're looking for different kinds of centers of gravity in a story that they can kind of use to propel their kind of music through. That I find that very kind of interesting and illuminating. So I always learn a lot about my own writing from working with somebody else and having their kind of sensibility and their creativity informing what we do. So collaboration can work in that way as well. I think right now in the UK there's a real flowering of small presses and interest in small presses and an appreciation of how small presses can have a big impact in literature and in the book trade. I would say try and find an audience for your work. I would say, look to see if you're writing poetry. Poetry lends itself more obviously to reading live in front of a live audience. But if you're writing prose or fiction, try and see if there's something that you're writing, a short story or a part of a larger work, that would work as a live reading. And see if you can use a local open mic night or something like that to test your writing out on an audience by reading it. If you haven't done that before, that might seem a bit scary, getting up in front of an audience. But actually, when it's not like being a stand-up comic or something. If you're there on a stage reading, people are sort of listening to what you're saying more than kind of watching your every move. So I would say try and find an audience, test your work out live. Also, you can learn from another thing that poets do, which is to publish a small chapbook of part of what you're doing, of a short story that you can give away or that you can sell at your events, at your readings. The other thing I would suggest, a third and final tip, would be to go to stuff. Go to literature festivals if you can. Go to events like this here at New Writing North, the Did You Create conference. Go and meet people and find other writers who are at a similar stage to you, because those people are your peers, and it could be that over the next few years you'll be kind of learning about the publishing industry and learning about finding readers together. You can learn from each other. So I would say those are probably my 3 tips.